So, I want to start off with a quote. And it says, "It is as though we have devised a form of heroin 100 times more powerful than before, usable in the privacy of one's home, and injected directly to the brain through the eyes." This is a quote from Dr. Jeffrey Satinover of Princeton University to a U.S. Senate committee. Now, so as Andy mentioned, I'm going to be talking with y'all today about pornography and its harmful effects. So I'm going to share with y'all how it physically changes your brain, how it affects relationships, how it distorts the way we view the people around us, and then I'm going to give you the tools you need to fight against the new drug. So I think a common misconception about the whole issue is that many people think that it's only a guy issue. Well, that's not true. So before I get into the statistics of between guys and gals, I want to tell y'all a really mind-blowing stat. So last year, 2015, 4.3 billion hours were spent looking at pornography. That's 500,000 years. That's ridiculous. I can't even come up with words to describe how ridiculous that is and how sad and devastating it is. Ages men 18 to 30, 80% of them viewed pornography monthly, and then about 34% of women as well. Also, the first time that an average child will view pornography for the first time is about 11 years old. So it starts at a young age, and then it just gradually gets worse. All right, so let's go on to the brain. So, in the brain, you have these things called reward pathways, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It rewards your brain after you've done something, well, whatever really. You have these two chemicals in your brain. One's dopamine and one's oxytocin. Oxytocin is released whenever you, let's say, you hold hands with someone and you get that butterfly feeling in your stomach, and it's just this is life, So that's oxytocin. And then dopamine is whenever you eat a bomb burger, just that was Gucci. But the thing with these chemicals is that they're released whenever these amazing things are happening, such as holding hands and eating amazing food, but they can be hijacked. And what I mean by that is that those same chemicals are released whenever we look at pornography, and we can just take advantage of that and just release them all the time. And I'll go into a little bit more about that in a sec. You also have a protein in your brain. It's called delta phosphate. Pretty much what that does is that every time you do something, this protein it creates new neuron pathways in your brain. So the more neuron pathways that are created in your brain, the easier it takes you back to that instance. So with pornography, the more you look at it, the more the delta phosphate creates neuron pathways, the more that it makes you easier to go back to that behavior, making you more susceptible to becoming addicted. And like a drug addict with drugs, you build up a tolerance over time. And looking at pornography is essentially the same thing as doing drugs, if not worse. So, moving along, I'm going to now talk to y'all about pornography today, modern pornography. So, pornography today includes endless novelty, shock, and surprise, making it the most powerful natural release. And it's just this increased surge, and it just puts you on this constant high. And today we're able to stay at that constant high because we have access to, I don't know, but phones, and which we have instant access to looking at pornographic images and videos, and because of that, we're able to constantly be on this dopamine overload. And so with the dopamine overload, you also have these things in your brain. They're chemical receptors, and they act like little catching mittens. So whenever your brain releases lots of dopamine, it has these catching mittens. And so what it does is that they get rid of these chemical receptors to protect your brain from having too much dopamine. And so the more chemical receptors that you get rid of, like with the delta phosphate, it just makes it even more easier to go back to that behavior, making you even more susceptible, and it's just bad juju. So now, that's the brain. So let's move on to relationships. Yay. Alright, so pornography, it's fake, it's dumb, it leads to complete dissatisfaction, it distorts the way we look at women, it distorts our relationships. We pretty much end up living in this false reality. So, a poll was done, and 6 in 7 women said that they thought that from men looking at pornography that their standard of women changed. And so with looking at pornography, it just creates this unrealistic standard because the women in these videos and images, they're just, it's not even real because they're airbrushed, they're photoshopped, they can pretty much be made to your like dream girl or whatever. And it, looking at these women, it distances yourself from your partner because of this unrealistic standard, so you become less attractive to her. So, let me give you an example. So, let's say you go on a 10-mile run. Okay, maybe not a 10-mile run, but just like a jog or run. I might go on a 10-mile run. Okay, so you come back and you have 2 glasses of water. They both look the same, but one's actual H2O, but the other one is salt water. They both look the same. They both look very refreshing, but one's good for you, and then the other one will be damaging for you over time. And that's exactly how pornography is. Over time, it just causes more damage within yourself and your brain and then the people around you. And I can't stress that enough. An analysis was done over the top most bought and most rented of pornography films. So within all these films, 304 scenes were looked at. And within all these scenes, 88% of women were physically abused, and then 48% of women were verbally abused. That's another common misconception about pornography, is that it's safe, and that it's okay, and that no one gets harmed. Well, no, that's a complete lie. Because the way the women responded, they made it look like they're having the time of their life, where they're getting torn apart. 95% of women either responded neutrally or they responded with pleasure. I've read a few articles about former porn stars who said what it's like, and one said that literally your insides are coming out of you. That's how brutal and badly these women are being treated. And so, also 94% of the time, the victim in these videos would be a woman. But then the 6% that would be men, it's funny because women, they didn't respond. They didn't respond with pleasure, but whenever the 6% of men, if they were the victim, they would respond back 4 times more aggressive than if it were the women. So you can kind of see that there's a power difference. So all this may be like a lot to take in. You may have not realized how like harsh like this reality is, but it is reality, and it's really damaging. So you know the facts, but now let's go from not such a dark side to like more of a light side, and let's look at some solutions that you can do to fight against this. So you need a battle plan, and on the porneffect.com website, there's like a list of things that you can do to fight against this. And so one of them is prayer and fasting. Prayer and fasting is probably the biggest key to success. It's a major key. Because through that, you're able to spend time with God. And I think, especially with looking at pornography, you need to just like claim it for what it is. You need to stop making excuses of like, oh, I can't go to chapel because I have blah, blah, blah. But really, you're just going to sit around on like Instagram and send stupid snaps to people. So you just need to claim it for what it is and, just get down to it. Also, fasting is a good, simple way to do it. Because if you can build up virtue and say no to little things, such as like the 2 cookies you can get at Grab and Go, or like the bomb pizza in the Cafe, which it is good, I like it. And you can eventually say no to like the temptations of pornography, and that's amazing because you're building up virtue. Also, with praying for purity is really good, and some really great people to ask to pray for you are the saints. So, one great saint that I think is awesome to ask for prayers is Saint Augustine of Hippo, who pretty much through his whole life, he struggled with addiction and lust and just women, and it was just bad news. But his mama came in clutch, and he had this really great conversion. Even though he had like a change of heart, he was still struggling with it. But it got better over time through perseverance and patience. I'm gonna talk about that here in a second. Also, probably like a really good one too is Mama Mary, because I think she just models what purity is and what it means to be, for girls, like what it means to be like pure and virtuous, and how to like dress and act, so to help like our brothers in Christ, and then shows like us as guys like how to like treat and like respect women. So like you get the best of both worlds. It's great. So for me, accountability is like probably the most important thing to me, because if I don't have my brothers in Christ, then I'm done. You really need to like fall on your brothers, and if you're a girl, fall on your sisters, and not just one, because if there's only 2 of you and one of you fall, the other one's gonna come falling over, and then the devil's just gonna like come in like ridiculously hard on you, and you both are just like, like screwed. Not to be negative, but that's just kind of like the reality. So like get a group of like, a couple of people, like maybe like 4 or 5 of like your really good friends. As I mentioned earlier about perseverance and patience, this isn't something that you can't conquer overnight. And I've learned that through myself. I've learned that through the people around me. It's something that takes perseverance and patience. And this kind of like brings it all together through prayer, being consistent in prayer, developing a good prayer habit, like doing like a little fast and stuff, reaching out to your brothers or sisters. And I know it's like really weird, like, hey dude, like I looked at porn today, like can you pray for me? I know like the first few times if you do that, it's like really awkward, because like you're telling someone you did that, but that's what they're there for. It's to be there for you and like pray with you, to go to confession with you, to go to adoration with you, the whole 9 yards, So, there's some really great things, programs, or apps, or whatever you want to call it, that I personally like. So, you got the Victory app, and then you got Covenant. So, the Victory app is something by Life Team, and it's pretty much like, you have like a map, it shows like like when you like looked at porn, when like pretty much your setbacks. You can say like when you went to confession. You can like, it'll send you alarms at like 9 a.m., 3, and then 9 p.m. Just to be like, hey, like time to check in, like how you doing, what's going on right now. And you can add accountability partners to it. So if like you do fall, you can just like hit a button and be like, yo, this is where I'm at. Also, I really like Covenant Eyes. And what Covenant Eyes is that it's pretty much, it's a web browser, but you can get people like on your plan. So let's say like Andy asked me to like sign up to be like his accountability partner. So like depending on like how many days, I'll get a report of all the stuff. Like if you know he hasn't looked at anything bad, you can set like a sensitivity too. But if he like looks at like porn, like I'll get a notification like instantly saying like, hey, like help Andy out. He's not doing so hot right now, and then I'll come in and save the day. So I really love Covenant Eyes, and I know you can get it for free through DC Ministry. And definitely tell all your friends about it, because from what I understand, the more people you tell about it right now, the more people that want to get on it, they'll like make it even more free to like more people next semester, and you know, the one married. So get on it. That's your homework. So I talked to you about how pornography like physically changes your brain, how it screws with your relationships, how it just like messes everything up. But then also I've given you like the solid tools that you can use in your daily life to help yourself, your brothers, and your sister to fight against this new drug. And I just want to end with this quote from Socrates. The secret of change is to focus your energy not on fighting the old, but building the new. So be persistent, persevere, have patience. I'm praying for y'all. Pray for me. It's not easy, but through God,